Intertalk Radio, you're in to all things music.
How much pressure comes with the last name of de-los-reyes? I mean, how much pressure is put on you when they actually find out the lineage of who your birth father is and who your uncles are and so on?
As a vocalist, I don't feel pressure at all. As a percussionist, on the other hand, when I'm introduced as, Wally's daughter, or when we're doing crazy festivals like Montreux or North Sea, and you have like amazing musicians watching you on the side of the stage, heck yeah, I get nervous. I get really, really nervous.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Everybody, welcome. Happy Monday, December the 4th. This is Jackie Bertoni. This is Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Radio, connect to all things music. Emerging Artist number 19 in an ongoing series, a successful series at that. But let me tell everybody out there worldwide, I have a real passion for today's interview. Let me tell you why. Not only is this woman, beautiful, but that shows how old I am. I used to hold her in my arms when she was a baby. That shows how old I am. But you know what, though? Her dad is old. Her uncles are old. Everybody around her is old. We've been around to watch this beautiful girl grow up and become the talent that she is. So with that said, we're going to get more in depth with that. But I want everybody to welcome with open arms and open ears to Jackie's Groove, my in-studio guest, Lilliana de-los-reyes. Lilliana, sweetheart, welcome, my girl.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, man. Let me just tell you, again, talking about old, we always make a joke. I'm going to tell the listeners out there, we have a thing every year in January called NAMM. That stands for National Association of Music Merchants, in which we're very proud here at Intertalk because we are now partners in the history of music, and we'll talk more about that as we go on other interviews itself. So we're very, very in depth. But the part I'm making is that my wife always says, I don't know why, Jackie, you freak out because all the girls that were babies, they grow up, beautiful girls grow up to be beautiful women. But again, too, when they're not, even if though Lilliana's not my blood, I get very, very protective. So a couple years ago, Lilliana comes and gives me a hug. I give her a big kiss, and her dad, Wilfredo Reyes Jr., we'll talk more about that. They go as a tradition. And the fact of the matter is people will walk up, and I'm not blowing smoke up Lilliana's booty right now, but the fact is someone will walk up to me and they said, hey, man, who's that beautiful Latina that you were giving a hug to? And I said, what do you mean? They said, that one over there. I said, you mean Wally's daughter? And they get skeeved out like I do because they don't realize that we knew you as a baby. And the fact of the matter is,
it honestly happens. Yeah,
on the regular,
happens all the time. Yeah,
and
yeah.
Lily, and I want to tell you something right now, baby girl. I'm going to go down to a text right now, and I actually got kind of choked up when I read it. But this is from a man by the name of Wilfredo Reyes Jr. I think you call him Daddy. And he sent me a text. He said, would you please do me a favor and read this to my daughter? And the reason why he did this, because he's on a plane heading to Orlando with Chicago. And Wally writes me, if I say Wally, Wilfredo, it's the same person. But he says, Jackie, do me a favor, read this to my daughter on the air. Hi, Lilliana. Hi, baby girl. I wanted to call in and surprise you. However, I'm on an airplane flying to Orlando to do a show with Chicago. I just want to say how proud I am of you, my beautiful daughter, and for graduating from USC Thornton School of Music, prestigious School of Music, while on the road with George Benson. He goes on to say, as a vocalist percussionist, you have become an amazing singer and a total great musician. You are, and I capitalize, definitely my best percussion student. And I mean that. You get everything so quickly, and your sense of groove is impeccable. God bless you, baby. Enjoy the interview with Jackie. Can't wait to hear it tonight. Love you with everything I have. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you for your passion in music. We need you. Okay, bye. I'm boarding. So that was from Wilfredo Reyes. And now, Lily, let me just, I'm going to say Lilliana, let me just tell you something. The old adage is, no one falls too far from the tree, the talent. Let's talk about your grandfather, the patriarch of percussion, Wilfredo Reyes Sr., who has taught us all. And thank God he's still with us here, alive and breathing and very, very healthy. And let's talk about, we said before, your uncle Danny de-los-reyes, who is the percussionist with Zach Brown. Let's talk about your uncle Kamar on One Life to Live. Yeah, he really stepped off the other side of the coin, but still, the talent that comes through the de-los-reyes family is ridiculous. And then let's talk about Lilliana. Lilliana, as we said a little while ago, she is a graduate of Thornton School of Music. I want you to tell the listeners out there, girl, exactly your journey with them, how you were handpicked by Mr. George Benson. So go ahead and share with us.
So I was going to USC. So, I am part of this musical legacy, but I grew up in a single parent household. And I didn't really have lessons growing up. And so my first really place that I started to stretch out, musically and vocally is when I started going to school at Thornton at USC. And while I was studying at USC, I think I was in my third year, halfway through, I'd say, I got, the email. First of all, do you play percussion? And would you like to audition for George Benson for his upcoming European tour? And at that time, no, I did not play. I didn't play percussion, but I just said yes. And I called up my dad, and he's just like, just say yes, we'll figure it out. You can come up for lessons. Like, I think you can do it. And I was just like, okay. I played a little bit here and there. I had, as a kid growing up, I'd spend time with my dad in the studio. I'm familiar with drums. I'm familiar with percussion, but I really didn't call myself a percussionist. I never had a gig playing percussion. I consider myself a vocalist. So I auditioned for him on vocals, and I spent every weekend. I do school during the weekdays, and every weekend I go to my dad's place. And just starting to play percussion and then having to play percussion while singing was a game changer. I was like, how the heck am I going to be able to pull this off? So I auditioned and I got it, and it happened. So my advice is say yes.
Yeah, it's always better to ask for forgiveness than it is for permission. We learned that growing up. But and again, I'm going to act like I don't know a lot about the Reyes family, which I do, but I'm going to act like I'm starting fresh here. But I want to find out itself. Do me a favor and tell the listeners worldwide, Lilliana, where were you born? Where were you raised? And I want to know the inspirations of music that were coming out of your mom and dad speakers at that time growing up. Share with us with that on that also.
Yeah, so I was born in Los Angeles, Culver City. And I grew up in Manhattan Beach while my parents were still married. And then we moved up to the Bay Area, where my dad's dad is from, Wilfredo Sr., and my mom's side of the family is up in the Bay Area. And right around that time that we moved up there, I was about 8, 9, and it was kind of around the same time that my parents split. So it was kind of like double whammy. Let's uproot you to a different school, and then, divorce. So it was an interesting time, but I always grew up, in the studio with my dad playing percussion. We have a ton of pictures of us sitting down at the drum set. My brother used to carry around chopsticks in his hands because sticks were too big. So everything was always musical. And my dad's side of the family is very musical, but my mom is, the brains and the power behind the industry, which is music business. So she was, heavy duty in accounting and music business. And so I have memories of, running around arenas and going to Journey concerts. And she is definitely a rock and roll type of person. So I grew up on the Pretenders, Heart, Eric Clapton. All kinds of rock and roll. And then out of my dad's side, I was sitting side stage, and he had to watch me while he played with Joe Sample. And I didn't even know who that was. I know I have, Joe Sample's autograph somewhere in a Spice Girls notebook. But so I grew up with everything coming out of the speakers, which was amazing. So that by the time I started to go into my own, I was familiar with all these,
Sure.
jazz, Latin, rock and roll greats
Now, is
that I
Mama
went
Carolina?
on to study.
I'm sorry. Is Mama Carolina listening in today?
She knows about it, so I hope she is. Hi, Mom.
We're waving.
But
We're
she will
waving
be-
at her right now.
Yes, we're waving. Hi, Mom.
I don't know if you remember, but
she's my number one fan.
Yeah, we used to do a lot of rehearsals. Do you remember the studio where your mom had an office there with Juan Carlos Quintero and El Segundo? Remember that little? You remember that?
Yeah.
And we used to go there all the time. And your dad would have all of his drums that at the time Pearl with the Sacred Fire Santana concert or tour, I should say, and just to actually see those drums sitting next to us when we would be rehearsing in there. And there was a lot of history going up there. As we said, with a lot of great entertainers like the group I work with, Wilson Phillips, Carney Wilson, and then also Kathy Rich, her dad being Buddy Rich. When you grow up with fame, and when the knock at the door comes and it's Elton John or it's Paul McCartney, it's Uncle Elton, Uncle Paul, and Kathy Rich would be Uncle Frank Sinatra. So with that said, you growing up in the industry, did you understand at a young age, even though that you were fully encompassed by music and entertainment in the Reyes family, did you understand what Dad did for a living?
I think I did. I mean, my mom, because my dad toured so much, and my mom has always worked full time, and so we would, it's like I do now. She would tack on vacation time to like an end of a tour, so we would go and visit him out on the road, and I knew that music just always seemed so natural in the family. It's like it was so interesting going to college and people are becoming doctors, lawyers, or, my friends would be on the outside of their family because they're the weird ones trying to do music. And I'm just like, well, it'd be like unnatural for me to not do music. It would be like, if I wouldn't do music, I feel like my parents would be like, well, why?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean, yeah, I think I always knew. And I used to tell my dad that I wanted to do what he did so that I could order room service. So I always... Yeah, I was just like, Dad, I want to do what you do when you grow up so I can stay in nice hotels and order room service. And then I got there and I realized that room service really isn't all that it's cracked up to be. So,
and I want to
seem like a natural thing.
Yeah, let me jump in here real quick too. I want to say something. I have to ask this question because I have stigmas growing up being with the Tower of Power and coming with that moniker behind us. But let me ask this question. How much pressure comes with the last name of de-los-reyes or Reyes? I mean, how much pressure is put on you when they actually find out the lineage of who your birth father is and who your uncles are and so on? Is that a lot of pressure to deal with, or do you try to stay away from that? Or is it inevitable they're going to find out originally anyways?
That's a super interesting question. As a vocalist, if I'm singing, I don't feel pressure at all. As a percussionist, on the other hand, because I have this weird thing about calling myself a percussionist, it's on my website. It is what I do. But at the same time, it's like I always feel like they're going to find me out like I'm not a real percussionist like my family is. So I think when I'm introduced as, Wally's daughter, or when we're doing crazy festivals like Montreux or North Sea and you have like amazing musicians watching you on the side of the stage, heck yeah, I get nervous. I get really, really nervous. So there is kind of a pressure on the percussive side of it. But I think as a musician overall, I think there's just a standard, okay, she's part of that family, so she better be badass, which, I mean, I feel like I fill the shoes pretty well. But based on myself, I feel like I'm okay.
When your father and your Uncle Danny approached me, of course, I go back, they're like my brothers, but they asked me, they said, can I ask you a favor? And I said, yeah, because it's really weird, Lilliana. I'm a percussionist. I've been a percussionist and, in the top 10 in LA for the past 30 years. But then now all of a sudden I'm not recognized as a percussionist anymore. I'm recognized as a radio guy. And it is, and I welcome that. I wear that hat proudly. But when your uncle and your father asked me if I would do them a favor, of course, I take a bullet for them. Well, maybe your father, but not your uncle. But we'll talk about that later. But nonetheless, they said, "Would you take the time and interview our dad?" And I got such a warm feeling inside. I said, "A favor? I mean, do I have that pleasure?" They said, "Yeah, because this is your dad." Looked at me and he goes, "Because Jackie, the bottom line is, when Dad goes, so goes the history, so goes the stories."
Yeah.
And so your dad was on the road. Your uncle Danny was at your grandfather's home. And so I asked him if he would do that because I wouldn't have a clue of the names and the people. So your uncle was on the other line feeding me questions to your grandfather. And I was thinking to myself, how am I going to carry this story? I mean, I know your grandfather. We're good friends, but we only see each other every year at NAMM. But let me just tell you something. Your grandfather stole the show. I mean, from the stories of growing up, moving to Las Vegas, and et cetera, and so on. But that said, do you, and it's kind of maybe a weird question. I mean, we talked about your daddy, but do you look up to Grandpa, your abuelo, and talk to him and pull on his knowledge at all for what you're doing?
Well, like I said, I grew up with my mom. So when my parents split, I actually did not grow up with that side of the family, even though he lived an hour away. And so I did, growing up as a kid, it was this weird feeling because I felt very isolated from that side of the family. And as I grew older and came into my own, I realized I can either be angry and resentful about that, or I can start my own relationship with the time that I still have. So the first time I actually sat down and had a conversation with my grandfather, Senior, I call him Senior, with Senior is I was 25. So
really?
I had already started touring. Yeah, I was 25 years. And a lot of people don't know that. I mean, I talk to people around the world and they're just like, oh my gosh, I just had a lesson with your grandfather. And that's always stung me a little bit because here I am kind of, I mean, it's always been interesting to me because, you know, both my brothers play music. My older brother is an amazing drummer, vocalist, songwriter, and my younger brother plays guitar and sings. And as the grandkids, here we are carrying on that family name, that legacy, that de-los-reyes name, there. And we never really felt like part of the family. So I chose, you know, I can either just like, you know, write them off and not reach out.
Right.
So I decided as I was older that I would reach out. So I've seen him a few times, and I went home for Thanksgiving, and I sent him a text, and I was like, hey, can I come over for a lesson? And we did, and we had a really good lesson. But it started at 25, which is crazy. And people, I guess, don't realize that.
Honey,
because
better late than never.
Think that, yeah, better late than ever is where I'm at. I mean, I don't want to like sit in anger or, you know, resent.
It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time.
It is. So and it's so true about what you said about the stories. I mean, there's so much history and there's so many stories, and I would love to go over. I mean, I was over there. My first conversation, it was my dad and my grandfather and my dad's girlfriend. And we were talking about, you know, Cuba and the history of the revolution and why he chose to leave Cuba. And I mean, that's basically like, I'm here because,
hey, baby girl, I'm going to interrupt you right now. I'm going to interrupt you. We're coming out of the first segment. You see how fast it goes. And I want to talk about the history of Cuba. And I want to talk about the festival that you go every year with your father and you share it with social media. So when we guys come back, don't go anywhere. So much more in store with my in-studio guest, Lilliana de-los-reyes. This is Jackie Bertoni, brought to you by Jackie's Groove and Intertalk Radio. Connect to all things music. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these short messages, and we'll pick up where we left off. And we also want to find out that song we started on the top of the set. We'll get back to that later. Guys, don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EnterTalkRadio.com.
This is Morris O'Connor, guitarist for Earth, Wind & Fire, and you listen to my good buddy Jackie Bertoni on Jackie's Groove.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
I can listen to this voice all day long. Let me tell you, that voice belongs to my in-studio guest, Lilliana de-los-reyes. Lilliana, and let me just take one quick second, sweetheart. I want to make sure that when you can't listen to Jackie's Groove live, and shame on it if you don't, but we can help you out that way. You can go to Google or iTunes and download our easy-to-use and easy-to-navigate application. 2 words. Intertalk is the first, radio is the second. Take Jackie's Groove and the plethora of other shows that we have on Intertalk Radio with you on the go. Just like we talk about, your father right now is trying to listen as long as there's Wi-Fi on the plane going to Orlando. So with that said, girl, we talked about the family and everything else, but let's talk about your journey forward itself. I asked you before, with the pressures and the stigma of carrying the last name de-los-reyes with you, and I think you aptly explained that, yeah, there is something that, to go with that. As a percussionist, as a vocalist, you can kind of step away from that. But and just talk about vocals for a second. The first song on the first segment, tell the listeners out there about that song. Is it available? And let's talk about the second song. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wrote that while I was going to school, dated a guy, got broken up with, wrote a song about it. And I ended up recording it. I think that was 2 years ago now. So it's so funny because I was listening to it with, the person that helped me record and produce it. And we were just looking at each other, kind of laughing like, wow, we've come a long way. So it's called How Could I Know? And it's up on my SoundCloud. And it's on my website as well, or you can find it through my website, just my full name, LillianaDeLosReyes.com. So it's there. And at that point, 2 years ago, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do live recording, instruments versus programmed. So it was like this song was kind of like this battle of MIDI and programmed stuff via Logic and or like real drums, real instruments. So it's an interesting, so it's kind of like this, it's cool because it's this timestamp, and then I'm, 2 years later, I feel like I'm going somewhere a little bit different, but it's cool.
And shame on you when you're surrounded by the who's who of players. Let me just tell you something. I got ambushed by your father last month in San Diego, and we were down hanging out with the guys in Chicago. And your dad sat with me and Uncle Tris and everybody else. And Wally says, "Hey, I need your help." And I said, "What?" And he goes, I know that Lilliana is, still on the road, but when she comes on, can you just let her know something for me? I said, "Yeah, man." He goes, "Let her know that it's time. It's time to get the album done." And he goes, I go, "Yeah." And he goes, and as long as I can get everybody to keep slamming her, I said, "Wait, Wally, you're forgetting something. She's a female. And the first thing a girl's going to do is they're going to shut down. And I said, that I've been married 34 years. I said, you got to let her go at her own pace." He goes, "Yeah, but Jackie, that was great when she was 18 years old. I said, "Wally, let her do her own thing." Yeah. He goes, "Well, please help and kind of push that forward." So we're going to try to do that here on the air. and is to get that going, because the bottom line is, girl, a voice like that. And I want to tell everybody out there, do yourselves a favor and go onto YouTube, type in Lilliana de-los-reyes, and I want you to check out some of the a cappella stuff, some of the simple stuff she's doing with keys, and also, too, the Latin group, the orchestra that you're playing with. What is the name? I was just trying to look at it again, the one that you're singing lead with and all the young students.
Oh, yeah, that was Alage. It was this Latin jazz orchestra that I was in school. So, but my dad is playing drums on the song that we were just talking about. How could I know? So that is my dad. That is my dad playing drums. I wouldn't hire anybody else. So, because I am very picky about drums and percussion.
Dig.
So he laid it down, and I put him through some paces. So, you know, and I do hire him sometimes. I mean, we hire each other. It's so funny because I'll call him up. Are you in town? I got a gig. Okay. So I have been hiring him for some of the stuff that I've been doing, which is really cool.
You know, and that's a good point. When Daddy's out of town, when he's on the road itself, and you've got a gig in town, who's your second call on drums? Share with us.
Man, well, I've been doing a lot of corporate events. So with that, I mean, it's not, you know, my own artist project. But I mean, he has a huge phone book. So, I mean, he's recommended a bunch of people to me, and then I've hired a lot of friends. So like right now I have a friend that's doing a couple gigs with me. But, you know, I was just talking to John Pena, who, you know, sat me down and was like, where's your music? What are you doing? It's time. So
we're ganging up. We're ganging up, girl.
Yeah. I don't know if my dad's really just, you know, making the calls, or everyone's just
trust me, he
on
is.
my case. Yeah. So we did a show. Gary Novak was on drums, and he's phenomenal. Of course. It was with David Garfield, Gary Novak, and John Pena was there. And he was just like, girl, where's your music? So I hear you guys. I hear you. I do hear you.
You know, and I want to say one thing also too, because, you know, I was bummed out. We went and saw George Benson and Kenny G in San Diego about a month and a half ago, and I didn't get a chance to see you because you were doing your thing, and I was sequestered with Ronnie Powell, my dear friend, percussionist with Kenny G, because Kenny and him was drinking too many shots upstairs and eating too much sushi. So we had to nurse him, and then of course I was hanging out with my dear friend and your bandmate Michael O'Neill, an amazing guitarist with George Benson for 30 plus years, and with Barbra Streisand. And then when Lilliana found out that I was there and I didn't get a chance to see her, I mean, it's like you get pulled by 1,000 different directions. But let me just tell you something: when you do the solo and the vocalist with George on "Here I Go Again," right? That's my only way I'm going to sing to you. But my, Caprice, my wife, looked at me and she goes, my God, look at that booty on that girl. So as soon as she said that, I'm looking around going, stop looking at her, stop looking at her. And then you have that little coquettish way that you sing with him, and then you run away from him. And I just think that's, you know, amazing. And even on some of the shows I've seen online where you sing the great Norah Jones tune, are you still doing that? Because I was backstage at the time. I didn't know if you were doing that song again. How much stretching does George give you? Not as a percussionist, but as a vocalist. I know a lot of his background, but are you trying to get a little bit more upfront time with him, or do you have that choice?
Yeah, we've talked about it, and it's also, I mean, it's old school jazz, so there's never a set list. So when I first started working with him, you know, they gave me about 50 songs, and then when we went on tour, I knew probably about like 100 songs, and now I probably know like about, you know, 150 or whatever, but he'll even pull them out and I have no idea like what it is. So, I mean, it's changing. I mean, there are like the certain songs that we do every night, but it's just like, I never know when we're going to do the Norah Jones song. I never know if we're going to do Moody's Mood, the one that you were just lovely singing to me. So I never know what it is that we're going to do. So we have some that we know we do during sound checks, that we practice, that we have in our book, but we just don't know when they're going to be pulled out. It's also, where are we? What's the audience? What's the engagement? So, I mean, I love touring with George, and it's allowed me to grow so much as a musician. I mean, I call it like my master's school, just to be able to tour. I started with him when I was 22. So touring with, you know, Michael O'Neill and David Garfield and Kahari Parker, who's one of my favorite people, and there's all these amazing people, has allowed me to grow so much. And I think I'm trying to, if I'm going to stretch vocally, it needs to be something that I'm doing on my own. I don't think I'm expecting it to come from that situation.
Sure.
So yeah, that's where I'm at with George.
That's a fair assumption. But baby girl, let me answer this question because I know how touring is. I mean, when you're in the higher echelon of playing it, it's not like you're living and staying in any seedy hotels and driving around in the back of a van. But you being the only female on this tour, how does that work when you're surrounded by a bunch of men, monkeys, if you will, or your uncles, if you know, for the lack of a better term, your bandmates? How is that as a female touring with a prominently, hormonal or testosterone-driven band? Do you have your own private, or how's the touring situation? I can't imagine you bunking in the tour buses with Share with us.
I mean, it's really fun. Like, I do call them my uncles, and they've been great to me. And so, when we are on a tour bus for a month, there's like the little things. It's like when I come home, I tell my boyfriend, put the toilet seat down. I'm not dealing with this. I'm just like, I've done it out there on the road. I'm not dealing with it here. So, but it's super fun. And when I started with them when I was younger, I mean, it was a little, I guess, daunting because you're trying to find your place. And it's also,
Sure.
All these guys have been touring for 20 plus years together. And you're this new, I mean, they see you as a kid. Like, I was born in 91. So everything that they're talking about, half the time, I have no idea who it is they're talking about. I've made a thing within my notes of, when they start talking about musicians and songs and names, I'll ask them, wait, so what are you talking about? And I'll write it down in my notes. But touring with them on a day-to-day is always super fun. I've had a really good time. They have amazing stories. I love listening to the stories.
Absolutely.
George is we're all on the same bus. When we're in the U.S., crew, bands, all on the same bus. I'm with a bunch of dudes. And when we go overseas, crew's on their bus and band's on another bus. But George is right there with us. So, you'll sit down and have a drink with George and listen to music and talk stories. So it's a good experience.
And baby girl, and share with a lot of the vocalists, because I'm getting a lot of messages here from other vocalists out there. They want to know exactly what you don't do in the way of consuming food before the show, before you go on. Are you the one that eats after the show, which is the biggest no-no on the road? Nobody wants to sit there and digest food at 11:30 at night. But what is it that you try to stay away from before you're going up on stage to not so much perform, but also sing? What do you stay away from?
Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm the worst person because we're on the road. I mean, hospitality, they just load our dressing rooms with chocolate and cookies and chips. And then you go to sound check, and then you come back from sound check, and then you wait a little while more with all the stuff that hospitality brings you. And then you go to catering, and then you get on the bus, and then there's pizza and there's chicken wings. And I mean, there's just food everywhere. So, I mean, I've never been the type of person to be like, oh, I can't have that. If I'm hungry, I eat. If I'm not hungry, I don't eat. And even if I'm still not hungry, you'll probably find me eating anyways. I'm a muncher. I eat a lot of food all the time. Honestly, I think the thing that I really try to tone it down with, if I'm, on the road for a long time, is the alcohol, because there's a constant flow of like wine and beer and whatever it is that you want. And I think like the first year was exciting and I'd have a drink with the guys, and now I just, have tea at night, and I try and stay away from like bready foods, like bread, pasta, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I don't diet. I don't restrict myself. If you want it, eat it. I just I don't like to live in a world of guilt or like shaming myself because I don't think I can have something.
Good girl.
But everything in moderation. Yeah.
And Lilliana, what I think is so fucking cool? Excuse my French. I like that word, cool. But it's when you are ready to launch your career, more than what you're doing as a hired grunt or a hired gun, if you will. But when you're ready to jump forward and be that front person, think about how ready you are. Think about the fact of all this schooling that you're getting actually paid for, to be a road dog, to understand the word no. Because, you are out there, and I say this all the time to the millennials out there. The fact is, sitting in front of a monitor and singing to YouTube and so on, I'm sorry, you got to be beat up. You got to be bruised. You got to have doors slammed in your face if you're going to grow that thick skin that is required, especially for a female in the music business itself. Do you feel emotionally and also in the way of being stringent, are you ready for the bullshit that this industry has to offer us or offer you as a female? Are you ready to fight it head on?
Yes and no. I think I'm well prepared and well versed, and I've had so many learning experiences even within this past year. I feel like you need to approach everything. I mean, it's such a weird thing to say, but like a man. I mean, why should I have to put up with anything that a man would or would not?
Amen.
It is some bullshit. And I have had some experiences where I'm like, this is some bullshit. But yeah, I am super prepared because, you know, the woman that raised me is the strongest person I know. And
Absolutely.
She is a no nonsense, no bullshit person. I mean, so smart, so self-aware, so just on it. So I feel like she's prepared me for all these moments and, you know, everything that I've experienced. You know, when anything is musical related, you know, I will call my dad and reach out and say, hey, how do I deal with this situation? And so I have two amazing advisors, and then, you know, have to give credit to myself for the work that I've put in and the things that I've learned and discovered. So yeah, I do feel prepared in a lot of ways, in a lot of ways. But then, you know, there are things that will always catch you off guard. Like, are you serious? Did this really just happen?
Exactly.
But you have to be, I mean, just prepared for anything. Like, I feel like you shouldn't be surprised these days, you know? I mean, there's so much going on. Like, there's no surprise. Yeah, I do feel like I'm ready to combat whatever comes at me next.
Lilliana, let me ask you this next question also, too. Are you, and be honest, as you've always been itself, are you comfortable in your own shoes? Are you happy where you are right now in this point of your life?
I am. I really have been doing a lot of work. This has been the first time that I have had a place within LA. When I graduated USC, I moved to New Orleans, and then I went on the road. And then I was going back and forth between the Bay Area and Los Angeles. And then I went on the road again. So the past couple of years, you know, it was school and on the road and traveling. And this has been the first time that I've been in a single place settled. So it's kind of weird because I feel like I've always been just moving and doing something, and to have this stillness, I think can sometimes get to your head. And you're just like, well, what should I be doing? Am I being productive enough? So I'm really learning and teaching myself to be happy in these quiet moments, even when I'm not working or when I'm not doing something. And I really am happy. I mean, I do have amazing friends. Like, I'm happy within my life, and I'm figuring out which ways make me happy creatively, because I want to do music. I'm very interested in fashion. I want to do so many different things. So in a creative space, I'm not really sure what my passion project is at this moment, which has been a great time to play around and figure out, what do I love?
Baby girl, I'm going to stop you one more time. I'm going to interrupt you one more time. There's that damn clock again. So I'm going to just pick this up because we started talking about your heritage of from Cuba and the stuff that you and your father do on these festivals and the learning curve from Cuba. We'll pick it up, and I want you to remind me, if you will. I'm old and I forget things. So when we come back on the third segment of Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Radio, connect all things music, I'm going to be right back with Lilliana de-los-reyes, for percussionist, vocalist with George Benson. Guys, don't go anywhere.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion, which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EnterTalkRadio.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Michael McDonald, and you're listening to my good buddy Jackie Bertoni on Jackie's Groove.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Everybody, welcome back to the final segment. Again, I can listen to this girl sing the phone book. I love this girl's voice. And what I got to do, man, is I got to take a couple seconds, Lilliana, before we go on, because I've got to pay some bills. And the people who pay our bills are our sponsors. And first and foremost, Pitbull Audio. You can reach them at pitbullaudio.com. But I just want you to play it loud. Calvin, thank you for your support, brother. People I am biased to, Bling Group, BLINGGROUP.com for all of your jewelry, diamond watch needs, if you can afford it. If you can't, go and join or visit the website and see what your dreams possibly could be. Also, too, Sabian Cymbals, my cymbal company I've been using for the past 24 years, Sabian.com. Vater Percussion, VATER.com, my drumsticks of choice for the past 25 years. And also to DW Drum Workshop, one of the greatest drum companies around. Don Lombardo, John Good, thank you for your sponsorship. And someone I'm sure that my Lilliana is very familiar with, my drum company, percussion company for the past 28 years, LP Music, and they are now part of the proud DW family. So with that said, guys, the bills are paid. Lilliana, you know, we like to be standalones. We like to do things on our own, but we also want to be supported. We want to be carried. We want to have a shoulder to cry on, or maybe some ears to listen to so they don't fall on deaf ears. And, you know, and I'm very, very thankful, again, being married for 34 years to a woman that gets my shit, and also to a team at the network who gets my shit but gives me shit on a regular basis, because they'll tell you that I can be somewhat of a diva, but it's a passion I have for radio. It's a passion I have for promoting talent from above the marquee or below the marquee. And I want to give a special shout out to my one of my engineers, Cedric, and my girl, my producer you've been speaking to, as a producer, Megan Wynn. Megan, I love you, girl. Paul Berzetsky, the COO and the engineer that is beyond the board today. Paul, say hi to Lilliana. And most importantly, go ahead, Paul.
Hi, Lilliana.
Okay, get off the phone now.
I actually saw you with George Benson in San Diego at the Balboa Theater a couple of years ago. It was really awesome.
Oh, nice. That's so cool.
All right, I'll get off your air now, Jackie.
Get off the air. Paul, get off the air now. And also, too, the CEO, the man that wears all different caps, even though he doesn't have any hair, he still wears a nice cap. And he's also a pretty damn good bass player himself. And he's dear friends, best friends for a long time with Michael O'Neill and so on. So with that said, Lilliana, do me a favor. Would you please say hi to the CEO of our network, Florentino Buenaventura? Florentino, say hi to this beautiful girl that you've met a few times also.
Hey, Lilliana, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. It's been a while. Laughlin, Nevada was the last time we hung out. Remember that?
Okay, backstage.
Yes, backstage with all the pizza, like you mentioned.
Cool.
Like they just brought
I told you, yeah.
Like I don't know, they brought in an army, like just army of pizzas. It was crazy. I thought, wow,
army of pizza every night.
Yes,
yeah,
it was cool. Great show. That was a crazy audience, wasn't it? You had like bikers and country folk, and I didn't know what kind of concert we were at. It wasn't a typical George show, audience, and and they were so into it, and you killed it. Like Jackie said. With that
yeah.
song. It was a fun time.
That's the part I love about traveling is the different crowds and the different people you get to see and meet, which is awesome.
Right.
Yeah. It was an amazing show, and you're such a talent. And that show, we talked about you coming on when your music was ready, if you remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here you are, and like Jackie said, your voice, I can listen to it all day. You've got an amazing gift, and I'm looking forward to it getting out to the rest of the world here, because everyone needs to hear your voice and the music that you do. And really love that John Waite song you recovered right this last segment, Missing You. So that was a great cover. So yeah, in this segment, and I don't know if we really talked about what the network really is about, but we're about shedding light on and spotlighting these amazing talents that don't always get the Rihanna, Katy Perry kind of attention, if you will. So
right.
That's why we're here, and that's what we really wanted to do with you. And with that said, let's do some plugging. Let's see where what are your URLs, your Facebook, your Twitter. If people can reach you by smoke signals, tell us how they can find out more about you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I am on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is my name, Lilliana, a double L, by the way, Lilliana DLR. And I'm on Facebook under my name, Lilliana de-los-reyes. I don't really use Twitter. I have one. I don't even know what my handle is. That's something I haven't really gotten into. And then on my website, you can contact me or email me through my website. Love chatting and talking to people. So, and that's where I'm at right now. I have to get more on the self-promotion scale. Self-promotion is always a weird thing.
It is. Right?
I feel like either you're really into it and you're on it and you're all about that social media. I've been trying to find the line of, what I think is really cool artistically and creatively, and then what is going to promote me business-wise. So that's like my Instagram is like this weird mesh of, traveling and then shows. So, I mean, so I try and post as much as I can, or when I remember to. So you can find me. Instagram is probably, I'm the most active on Instagram, which is, again, Lilliana, LILLIANADLR.
Awesome. Yeah. Avoid that Twitter thing. Next thing you know, you're going to be president of the United States, and that's not a good thing these days. So you don't
God.
You don't want to do that. So awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I'm going to pass this back because I've been really enjoying this interview with you and Jackie. It's like, listening to family members chat about, what's been going on, catching up. And, that's what we're all about here, is letting people kind of share a bit of the lives and the loves of the people that we adore. So, Jackie.
And Florentino, we don't want to say too while you're on the air with me. We want to extend that olive branch to Lilliana, because when the album is ready to drop, Lilliana, you have an open door policy here with Uncle Jackie and Uncle Tino to come back and promote the living hell out of that album. And let's get it, out there worldwide. So we'll extend the invitation. If you extend the acceptance, you're back on. And if you we'd love nothing more. We'd love nothing more. So with that said, so Tino, thank you, brother boy.
Thank you, bro. We'll talk later.
Okay, we will. Let's take up this last 9 minutes. Now, I am not going to forget this, Lilliana. Let's talk about this, something that you and your father do. I think it's amazing. When you guys go back to the old country, as they say, tell the listening audience out there exactly what you and your father do out there in listening to the ways, the rhythms of Cuba. Share with us.
So my dad had mentioned, let's go to the drum festival. This was, I think, 2 years ago, in Cuba. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll let you know. I don't know if that's going to work out. So I was actually doing a show in Cozumel, and it worked out. And so I met him over there with my brothers. And that was the first time that I had really spent a long amount of time with my dad since I was a kid. And so we were there for 2 weeks, just my brothers, myself and my dad. And, we went to the house that he was born in and grew up in, and the house that my grandparents lived in and my great-grandparents. And, it's crazy because Cuba is this time capsule, and the tiles are still the same. Everything's like painted the same. We were at this, we went to one of his old apartments, and then there was a bakery around the corner, and he's like, I remember my mom used to take me to this park and everything is painted exactly the same colors, everything, which is so crazy to me because if I went to my grandparents' village where they grew up in Italy, nothing would probably be the same.
Right.
But Cuba is this crazy time capsule, and I really enjoyed it because we were there for the Festival of Drums, which is something that my dad and I have really bonded over and have really connected over is music and drums. So, you know, my favorite and my most memorable part about that trip was him and I were walking around. My brothers went to go get tattoos somewhere, and my dad and I were walking around Old Havana, and we heard cowbells and drums coming up from this old apartment, and it was dark, and it was just him and I walking around, and so we were just like looking up at this apartment, and then there's a few older ladies, and they just told him in Spanish, you know, go up to the apartment. And my dad and I are looking at each other like, no way, you can't just walk into somebody's apartment. And they're like, no,
Right.
go. So him and I just start walking up this old staircase, and someone was having a ceremony in their home. And here I am with like my Canon camera, and we both look like American tourists. So
Right.
he starts talking to him like, this is my daughter. I was born here. We're here for the Festival of Drums. And I put my camera away, and they said, you know, no pictures. And we were like, no, you know, we're just here to see. And this woman, my dad told him, you know, I'm Cuban, and she's half Cuban, half Italian. And she just lit up, took me by my hands, and she's like, I'm Cuban and I'm half Italian too. And I don't speak Spanish. And she just is talking to me in Spanish, explaining everything about the ceremony. I'm looking at her like I completely know what she's talking about. I have absolutely no idea. So she takes me to the altar that she's built and teaches me how to give thanks and pray for the God that she's honoring for herself. And people are wearing festive wear, and they're drumming, and it was just amazing. And here my dad and I are just walking down the street, and the way these strangers just took us into our home was just something I'll never forget, and how him and I got to enjoy that together.
See, man, and that's, you know, these are situations, these are anecdotes that you can't fake it out. You know, you have to actually experience. It's like telling somebody what steak tastes like if you've been eating peanut butter all your life. You have to really get in there. You have to dig your teeth into it, man, and know where you're going, Lilliana, in the music business or in life. You have to know where it started, where you came from. And that's a problem with, you know,
Right.
with the younger set and so on, not being engrossed. You don't have to love country music. You don't have to love polka music, you know, whatever it may be, but you have to love music and the essence of what it takes to motivate someone to write these great soliloquies, these great, you know, opuses and such. I mean, with that said, and those are the biggest words I'm going to use in this whole interview because I just wore myself out. With that said, what, you know, I mean, I know you mentioned before you have a boyfriend. I don't know if I'm happy with that, but the bottom line is it is what it is. Is he a motivation? What motivates Lilliana to sit down and write a song other than heartbreak? Or is heartbreak a motivation for writing music?
No, I don't think heartbreak is a motivation for writing music. I mean, songs definitely can stem from that. And even though I love my boyfriend and he motivates me in so many different ways, he's also not my motivation in writing music. I mean, that has to come from somewhere within you. That's like when people say, oh my gosh, you're so talented. Of course you're talented. It's in your blood. Well,
Right.
My blood and my talent via my family didn't get me on stage. Like, I got me on stage. So I think that motivation and that inspiration really has to come through you. And that's the biggest inspiration is your own experiences, your own life, your own trial and tribulations, just the things that you're doing. And of course the people around you, but really it's you that, I mean, the work doesn't get done without you. So
no, and that's I agree with you 3,000% because it's not so much how you get there; it's when you get there is how you stay there, and that's the most important thing. Because you know, in our instrument, let's step away from the vocal, being a vocalist. Let's talk about percussion. Over the years, unfortunately, percussionists are the first things to go when the budget falls out, and the situation. But when percussion is no longer there, it's greatly missed. We are the pepper, we are the frame around the great picture, and so on. And for you to have both talents again, too, if you never played percussion again in your lifetime, would be fine with me because that would just give you more reason to get up there and sing, to get up there and perform, just to get up there and just look at the passion. When I watch you with the Latin orchestra that we talked about on the second segment, just that passion in the blood. And when I'm watching you, surrounded by these young, gabachos, if you will, but still playing the montonos, the tumbaos, or whatever it may be, it's that passion, watching you dance into the salsa-esque, style. How could you not be? You could be the whitest guy in Minnesota, and a good salsa song will come on. You can't help but not move. So with that said, and I want to find out right now, if I was to hijack your car or your music player, what am I listening to in rotation? What are you listening to?
I'm listening to a lot of different artists with really good production right now.
Cool.
So John Bellion and Kimbra and Billie Eilish and all these new younger artists. But, I also have Tito Puente and,
of course,
Freddie Hubbard and all the greats. So I love going back and dipping into what I know, because I feel like in order to move forward, what you're hearing on the radio, Justin Bieber, the doom, ba, doom, ba, doom, that is the bata drum. Like, before you can make a beat in production, or before you want to be like the new Dr. Dre, like, you have to go back and learn your history. Like, where did the drums come from? Exactly. Where did these beats come from? And that was so interesting while I was in Cuba, learning about the history of the bata drums and where they did come from. And, you're hearing to Cheap Thrills on the radio by Sia, and you're in Cuba and they're doing it in a completely different way, but that's where that stems from. And, Justin Bieber is pulling from that. So it's so interesting to pull from history and then twist it and make it into your own, into a new production. So I'm really listening to a lot of, current artists on the radio. And of course, all my friends are doing music. So I love listening to what they're doing. But I love being able to go into the tool bag and reach for some stuff that I grew up on and what I used to listen to.
Lilliana, let me jump in here in this last minute and 30 seconds. The question that Caprice came up with, I asked this on all my interviews. I'm going to ask it to you. If music was never in your vocabulary, if it was nothing, there was no music, period, what would Lilliana be doing today?
Something artistic and creative in a different way. I think I would be into something in fashion or somewhere in the arts. You would see me somewhere in the arts somewhere. I'm not a 9-to-5er, so I would definitely be doing something artistic.
Dig it. Hey, and Lilliana, baby girl, I want to just tell you right now, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your Theo says thank you so much for we finally did it, man. And I'll say it again. You're welcome back. We will promote the living hell out of your new music. Get your ass in the studio, girl. Find some extra time. Make daddy proud. Make yourself proud. Make us all proud. And get us a chance to fill our ears with your soulful and your beautiful voice all the way around. I want everybody out there to visit LillianaDeLosReyes.com for everything Lilliana. And again, all of her social media, Facebook. Follow this girl. If you can't find her, message me and friend her if there's any space left on social media. You want to follow this girl. She's going to be the shit, man. Let me just tell you, and I say that with all the passion in the world. Lilliana, I love you like you have no idea. I'm so proud of you. Hopefully we'll see each other in NAMM this year, and I'll have everybody else be jealous when I'm hugging you. So with that said, girl, love you, girl. God bless. Go about your day. Everybody say thank you and goodbye to Lilliana de-los-reyes. Lilliana, as I say with all my ending broadcast, peace through music and support local music. Love you, girl. God bless.
Love you. Thank you.
Be well, honey.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. you're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.